Now then you see these ships coming right by America's harbor here, not far from Florida. And look, there's no gain for this from what the United States is doing. By allowing Ukraine to use our weapons to strike into Russia doesn't change the dynamics on the ground. It just adds more risk for us, as evidence here. Because, look, we don't know what's on those ships. We don't know if they've brought any weapons that they're going to leave there in Cuba. We don't know if they have other missions. All we know is that this is just kind of heightened and ratcheted up the tensions that benefits America nothing.
And Lieutenant Colonel, you brought up something that I wanted to ask you about, so I'll do it now. So far in the research that I was doing, they're saying there are no nuclear weapons, there are no weapons on board any of these vessels. But is there any way to guarantee that? We can't know, right, unless we were actually on the vessel seeing.
Yeah, especially the nuclear-powered sub. I mean, not like we did some kind of inspection, and I don't know that the Russians are going to say, yeah, here's what we got, here's what we don't. So, no, we don't know anything about what's on board any of those ships.
And U.S. Navy ships, we know, are tracking and have been tracking these Russian vessels. So what all does that actually involve?
Well, I mean, I guess in that sense, there's some marginal utility to it. So you get some practice actually tracking foreign vessels and potentially adversarial vessels. But of course, that's working both ways. They're doing the same to us. And, there's every reason to expect that they're using their radars. And if they should ever want to do an attack, this is kind of some of the things that they would use, and vice versa. Bottom line is, you see that this just ratchets up tension to where, any kind of an error, a mistake, a miscalculation, a misunderstanding could lead to more and more problems for us. And of course, we already know that, like Putin said, that he is now considering allowing Russian weapons and ammunition to be used against us elsewhere in the world from our adversaries. And that's something that a lot of people are watching closely.
What is the best move, do you think, for the U.S. right now?
Well, without question, it is de-escalate, and it is, let's bring this Russia-Ukraine war to a negotiated settlement instead of expanding it and just risking more and more strikes outside of the war zone. I mean, that's what is not in our interest in any way, shape, or form, and that's what we should be doing. But apparently, as your correspondent just mentioned there, tomorrow, where the United States is going to sign some sort of a 10-year agreement with Ukraine, which frankly is not helpful.
So the situation obviously tense right now, because of what's happening in Ukraine. The situation is tense between Washington and Moscow. Do you think this is a threat? I mean, either direct or indirect?
Well, without question, it is. I mean, and the day after Putin announced that he was considering allowing his weapons to be used against us elsewhere on our territory or against our assets, the next day he reiterated that they have a nuclear doctrine that says they will use tactical nuclear weapons if they decide that their territorial integrity is threatened. And, you don't want them to continue even thinking on those terms and doing exercises. They physically exercise it. They've moved some of the weapons around. All this does is just, again, it just keeps things on a knife's edge for no use. This doesn't help us. This is not making Ukraine safer. It's not going to change the outcome of the war. It just increases the risk, and it's a bad move.